Welcome to Our Swift Epiphanies.
I'm Tanya.
And I'm Emery,
We're a mother and daughter with an admiration
and a little obsession
for Taylor Swift.
In this podcast, we let you in on our discussions of Taylor's artistry,
her genius,
and her poetry.
Her music evokes powerful emotions
and has led to epiphanies both personal and universal.
Come along and join our deep conversations as we share our Swift Epiphanies. Let's get into it.
Okay, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Okay, so I'm Tanya, and I'm a mother of 4. One of them is here with me today.
That's me. I'm Emery. I'm her daughter.
So we decided to come together as mother and daughter and do a podcast on all of the things that we love about Taylor Swift. We're both super fans. We think she is incredible. She's an amazing poet. She is an amazing musician.
Taylor Swift has taught us about ourselves. I've learned about myself because of her. It's brought us together. She talks about the world. She brings things to light. We've changed, I think, because of her music. Some of our point of views have shifted. And we'll talk about all of these things, but I just love that she has been a source of epiphanies in my life. And I just think it's incredible how one person can have such an impact. And so I'm really excited to do this. So me and my mom have been listening to her since I don't even know when. I don't remember a time in my life when she wasn't in my life. I'm 21, so her first album in 2006 came out when I was 5 years old.
Were you really that young?
Yeah, that's about where my memories even start. And so as far as I can remember, Taylor Swift has been in my life. And I have you to thank for that.
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning. I mean, when you were that young, we were living in Alaska. And when Taylor Swift came onto the scene, she was so different than anything else out there. She was the girl next door, but yet she was super intelligent from the get-go and just savvy and just really smart in whatever she did. And from the very beginning, I just thought she is a really great role model because she's real and she writes about real life. She performs in a real way. She entertains in a real way. There was nothing fake or there was nothing awkward or embarrassing or fake or offensive in anything that Taylor did from the beginning. So I saw her as a really great role model for my daughter and somebody that both my daughter and I could listen to together, that I could really enjoy it, that Emery could really enjoy her music, that we could experience that stuff together. I thought it was very universal. What were your first feelings and thoughts about her and her music and her poetry? And like, do you remember back then what you were thinking at that really young age?
I mean, I don't know that I specifically had any thoughts up there in my head at all, but I do know that I knew that you loved her, and she was just a household name. She's what we listened to all the time, you and me, always, you know, in the kitchen or in the car. She's always our go-to. And so I remember I listened to her a lot because she was the singer that I knew. You know, I'm not one to get into many celebrities or artists or people. It's too much for my brain to keep track of, but I have always known Taylor Swift. And so I think, you know, those first couple of years, I was just listening to her. But I know that as I got older, as I was in elementary school and getting older, she definitely played a big role. Her music played a big role in me kind of, I don't know, being okay with who I was, but also recognizing that I wasn't the only one having my experiences. Um, the first time I can really like remember really getting into Taylor Swift myself and like listening to the lyrics and understanding the sentiments of her songs was when Speak Now came out. And I was 9. It came out in 2010. And you, being amazing, put all of her songs, the first 3 albums of songs, onto CDs for me, and then printed all of the lyrics out in a book. And I still have them.
Let me just
Lyric
interject.
book.
So at that point in time, we had everything on iTunes, but it was on one computer. We didn't have like all the extra devices that we have now to have all this music on. So we had all her music that up until that point on my computer. And so I burned discs from those songs that we had. And I don't
And I
even know what
had,
order they were in on the CDs, but I
I
wanted you
don't,
to be able to listen to them wherever and
on
whenever you wanted. Like in
in
your
on the little
room,
CD player in my room.
yeah, because I felt like um
I remember
I
I
was
had
working
a
from home and I was doing all this stuff on my own computer and didn't always, everybody didn't always have access to the songs and the music lists
Mhm.
we had, but so I burned those discs for you. And
Yeah.
I remember copy paste of her lyrics to get them in a lyric book for you.
Yeah. Alphabetized. These are
Alphabetized.
alphabetized. Taylor Swift lyrics. And there's every song from her first 3 albums in here. And it's amazing to me, like, this was the greatest gift I ever received. Like,
Aw.
I loved this. I still love it. I don't use it because I have all of her songs on my music too, but I had it was a tiny little Barbie CD player, and I had it in my room and I would listen to these songs just on repeat. And I would go and I would like listen to the first CD like 2 times through, and then I'd go and I'd switch to the next CD and just listen to them through and read all the lyrics. And that's when I really started to understand that these were songs about real emotions, and I was starting to feel these real emotions. um and it was really cool to just come into my emotions, my relationships, knowing these things and having these lessons be taught to me by Taylor Swift, who's another young woman living her life and experiencing these things and sharing her wisdom, which I feel like she has always done and done well. It's amazing.
One of the most impressive things for me is that as an adult mother, I could still relate to these songs. That not only was my daughter growing up with them and feeling them and understanding them and really being understood through this poetry and these songs, but also it's interesting how universal it all is. And that me as an adult mother, I could relate to everything. Like I remember being 15 and I remember um all of my first crushes and I remember all of those things and real life and also relationships with with my mother and then now my relationship with my daughter and how all that played into it. Um but yeah, she's so universal. And even now, I'm nearing 50 years old and I still feel like she gets me. She's always
Yeah,
been able to get me. She understands.
I just loved being able to always go back to her. Um, in elementary school, everything is drama. Your best friend doesn't say hi to you at recess, and then the whole world comes crashing down, and you can go to her songs and just better than revenge is not really something that an elementary school kid is really dealing with, but when you're in that time of your life, you can really jam out to it, and it's great. It's great therapy for a 10-year-old to be able to scream that in her bedroom and,
Yeah.
and think about some petty little thing, and then now to have, you know, real drama, I guess, and just to still be able to relate to that. Like you're saying, it's her music is timeless. And I keep saying the word, but I think it's just magical.
Mm-hmm.
Her music is magical because it transcends age, relationships, genders, all of it. It applies to everyone because it's human, which is amazing.
Yeah. And the interesting thing to me is, so we're not a family of pop culture. We don't really follow like trends or celebrities or anything like that. We love entertainment. We love movies. We watch movies together, but we don't really like follow any particular celebrity or
People,
pop culture. We're just not big into that. But but from the get-go with Taylor Swift, I was ready to follow whatever she did. I remember her 2009 live performance of Should Have Said No, and just going from like hoodie and jeans, and doing that beginning of that performance and then into like the dress and then the rain. And I know some people in the very beginning with that were like super critical of her, and because her vocals weren't perfect yet. um I was mesmerized by her from that, because she was able to do this amazing entertaining performance without having to worry about being perfect or polished or anything. Like all of her emotions were there, all of her, the it factor that she has was there from then on. Like I remember that being one of the most pivotal moments of like, oh, I'm all in, because this girl has, she's so cute. She's the girl next door, but she's got all of this oomph, and she's able to um perform with confidence, even though you could tell she was nervous. I mean, it was one of her first, huge live performances. But I go back and watch that performance now, and I'm still like, oh my gosh, who is this girl? And where did she come from? And how is she so savvy already? And how does she know how to do that? Like, she just was amazing
yeah,
to me from the very get-go. And that
yeah.
was one of the moments that really like, I was so excited that she was on the
Mhm.
scene. And anyway,
Yeah, that was a powerful performance. And
it was fun and
yeah.
exciting and different. And
Mhm.
she
And
went all out.
she did.
She went all out.
She really went all out. And she's always been her. And I think, you know, the media gives her so much crap all the time for everything. But I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing, at least one of the biggest things that she's gotten crap for, is changing genres, or people call it not being true to herself. But when you look back to those first few things, you see a performer, you see a storyteller, you see a fun girl who's having fun with her music while being authentic and true to herself. And music genres change, but she has always been her.
Yeah.
And she's always tried new things. She's always, followed adventure and new. And um I just think it's incredible and inspiring that she's willing to step out of boxes. She's willing to get rained on a stage, and just have the performance of a lifetime and just have fun.
Mhm.
And I was a little girl in my friend's living room watching that video, and or that performance, and just thinking of how fun she was.
Mhm.
And I felt like I was there with her. I was feeling those emotions with her. You just watch her and you feel what she feels. So you can tell that we love her. I think
Can you?
that's I think that's evident here. But there's so many Swift fans out there. So why are we doing a podcast?
Good
How did
question.
this come to be? Um,
And what in the
and
world are we gonna, I mean,
what
how
in the
else
world
could
are
we
we going
talk
to
about
talk
this
about?
over and over and over?
Exactly. So just to start off, a little background. Like we said earlier, Taylor Swift has been our go-to on car rides and shopping trips and everything you can think of. Every road trip we've ever been on, she has also been there. Um,
That is true. She's in the
and
car with us all the time.
exactly. And so we,
But not only that, like
yeah.
we concert it up every
Oh, yeah.
time we're in the car with her. We are singing at the top of our lungs. We don't have these deep, well, yes, we do. We do have deep conversations, but more the the majority of the time is spent with us having our own little Taylor Swift concert, singing at the top of our lungs, belting it out, crying, feeling
Yeah,
all the
there's a
waves
lot
of
of that.
emotions that we get from every different song. So,
Well, and I think of too, you saying that made me kind of realize I don't know if I've ever told you some of the things that, like, I don't know, like we were talking about the song Never Grow Up
ugh,
earlier, and how we both just feel that song very strongly. We have a very close bond. We always have. I don't think I've ever told you the way I feel about you about you, but I have told you that that song is accurate. And at least in that many words, and probably in other ways, but I I just she said it all and she said it better than I ever could. I love my mom.
yeah.
And Taylor Swift loves her mom. And so I just, like you're saying, we do have deep conversations, but more often than not, we're sharing experiences through the songs that we're listening to.
Mhm. Yeah. And I love that because sometimes I feel like I see things from Taylor's perspective, but then I also feel like she's singing, like my daughter is singing to me, like I'm in Taylor's perspective, but I'm also at her mom's perspective and like seeing my daughter growing up and I don't like it. and I, and I want her to stay little and I want to be her mom and her best friend forever. And I love the relationship Taylor has with her mom because it seems like she has a very similar relationship than we do as we do that
Yeah,
um yeah, that they cherish all those memories and they love it, but they've grown together and they've grown older together and um just gotten closer and closer.
very much so. So, on one such road trip with Taylor along with us, we were headed to Pennsylvania, which, if you're a Swiftie, you know Taylor Swift lived in Pennsylvania. um, I lived there in some of the suburbs northeast of Philly for about a year. Um, and so we were headed back to go see some of the people that I love there and visit the sites, see Philadelphia. My mom's never really been there, so we were able to see all of the museums and historical sites, and that was amazing. But this ties back to Taylor Swift because this is where the podcast was born, was on this trip to Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So here we are in the middle probably of Nebraska. I don't know. It
Probably.
was either Wyoming or Nebraska because they're both so long, but we were belting it out again and just totally singing our hearts out to Taylor Swift songs and just loving it. And then in between, we would like pause it and talk about, we're like, oh my gosh, let me talk, here, this is what this means to me. And what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? So we're not
And
only,
oohing and awing about these
yeah,
amazing lyrics and how did
yes.
she do that at such a young age? And we would
Right.
just back and
Or
forth and back
yeah.
and forth, just analyze these
And
things.
just amazed at how much we loved her and how much like real life is in these. And we were just talking about that and what all of her poetry means to us. And so, yeah, you go ahead. We just
Yeah,
got talking
well,
about it.
like you said, probably somewhere in Nebraska, maybe Ohio, I don't know.
Uh,
We you just said, we were doing one of these just like in-depth conversation between songs, and you just said we should be recording this. This should be a podcast, and that stuck.
yeah,
And it stuck
because we're
hard.
like, oh my gosh, we have so much to say.
Exactly. And we have so much to say about her and her artistry. And so we started thinking about, okay, well, if we did a podcast, what would we even talk about? What would our topics be? How would we format each episode? What would we talk about
And how would
that
it be
hasn't already
different
been
than,
talked about?
yeah, how would it be different than everything else out there? Because there are so many Taylor fans and there's so many people that go through her songs or talk about topics or whatever. So we
Mhm.
kind of just got talking about, well, what are our strengths? What do we love about Taylor? What are our experiences with her? What are the lessons we've learned? What do we take from it? And what are the things that we appreciate most? And so we started talking about all of these different themes and topics and different areas. And we just got thinking, oh my goodness, we probably could do this. It's a possibility. We could do this.
Yeah, we ended up with, more than a page worth of these ideas of episodes, and most of them are topics that she talks about in multiple songs, ways that she weaves these things together, um specific words that she uses over and over to convey different emotions or the same emotion in multiple songs. Just the way that she has woven her artistry together, and it's her. When you hear a song by Taylor Swift, it's Taylor Swift, not just because of her amazing voice, but because you can hear her stamp in each one, her artistry in each one, her poetry in each one. And so we really want to focus on that. We want to focus on, you know, not only these things that are all woven together, but also how they impact us, back to this idea of epiphanies, of these impacts that she has on us. So we've got a whole list. We're excited to go through it. But today's just an intro. We're just going to talk to you about how this came to be. And next, I think is how our name came to be, which
Yeah.
I think is a cool story.
It was so much fun. It was so much fun to like think about the possibility of doing a podcast with my sweet daughter about this passion that we both have of Taylor Swift and how much we love her. And all of these topics we thought about are very thematic. And we thought it would be a really, really great way to um, share our experiences and bond as a mother and daughter, of course. But we started thinking about like what would we call it and how could we convey what it is in a simple title? And I just got thinking of like our swift understanding. That's the first thing that kind of popped into my head is
That was
because
the
for a
kickoff.
while it was quiet.
We left Utah,
We did.
our car radio or aux working at all. So no music from the car. We had a Bluetooth
We
speaker,
did. We had a
but
Bluetooth
it
speaker.
couldn't it wouldn't play while it was charging.
Right.
It wouldn't play while it was charging. And so we would charge it up, and then we would play it, and we
And
would
we would
charge it up,
listen.
and then we would play it. So we would
Right.
listen to Taylor Swift, and then we'd plug it into charge, and we'd come up with these ideas.
Yeah. So we,
um
during these moments of silence, we would either talk about it or we would be deep in our own thoughts. And
yes.
when one of those points when we were deep in our own thoughts, I was thinking our swift understandings, but I didn't love how it sounded. I didn't think it conveyed it super poetically, which is sad. I wanted it to be a little bit more poetic.
We wanted it to convey that this was a podcast about artistry. And the title, Our Swift Understandings, just wasn't really cutting it.
It just
But
didn't have the it factor. So we
yeah,
started to brainstorm about, we really liked the Swift part because a lot of times that's how we like the first time I hear one of her songs, that will be the emotion I get every other time I hear it. So we had to think of
yeah,
of how to work that in.
I really liked it. You said Our Swift Understandings, and that was like the first, trigger word to be like, oh yeah, I like this is a good direction to go in. And and we started naming off a bunch of synonyms. What synonyms could we use to get the right word? And
Right.
we went through our Swift experience, our Swift perception, our Swift influence, the Swift impact, effect, opinion, conviction, reflection,
So many.
impression, adventure, chronicles, all of these different words that we were trying to figure out what is the word that we're looking for. And so we're thinking of this, we're trying to figure it out. We tried a couple different things that weren't our Swift blank, but nothing felt right. Nothing felt like it gave justice to what we're trying to do here. And so we just kept thinking on it. And I just had my phone and I was looking up synonyms for understanding, synonyms for history, synonyms for all these different random words. And um, at one point, we had stopped at a Walmart
We stopped at
and
a Walmart to get
to get
another
a Bluetooth speaker.
Bluetooth speaker because we were so tired
We were a little
of
tired of the
ours
silence.
dying, and we need, because I mean, we were talking about this whole thing and we were like, well, I want to listen to that song, or I want to,
Yeah, we
we
wanted to
wanted
be
to
able to play the songs
completely
as we're thinking
immersed.
of.
Yeah. So we were
So
like,
we're at
let's
this
just buy
Walmart
another
trying to pick up a
speaker.
new speaker. And I had just like entered a new word to find synonyms for. I can't remember what the word was, but epiphany was one of the synonyms. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like she's got her song Epiphanies, and that's a good one. But I had just been saying it in my head, and we were looking at speakers, and I was just going back and forth in my head. Is this a good idea? Is it not? Is it whatever? And then all of a sudden I just am like, okay, Mom, what do you think about Our Swift Epiphanies? And
And we were both like, yep,
the second it came out of my mouth, I
yep.
was like, oh,
That's the
like,
one.
yeah, that's the one. It's
That's
it's
the
a
one.
word that she's used. And our podcast doesn't necessarily have a nod to that song specifically, but it's a beautiful word. And it really describes the experiences that we've had with her music. And it was finally a word that I think gave justice to her artistry and what we're trying to do. And so it just clicked, and we were like, that's the one. So
Yeah.
you're
It's more
listening to.
magical and it's more theatrical in a way, but it's like it's just magical and it just feels right.
Absolutely. So you're listening to Our Swift Epiphanies. And this podcast idea just kept building as we were on this trip. And, we knew Taylor Swift lived in Pennsylvania. We knew where her house was. We knew it
Well,
was
we knew
in,
the town. We knew it was in
we knew the
Wyomissing.
town.
We
Yeah.
didn't know where it was quite in relation to all of the other priorities, that all of the other places we were going to go in Pennsylvania.
I had like a list of our priorities. These are things that we need to do while we're in the area that I used to
In
live.
Pennsylvania.
Um,
So there were people you wanted to see, there were places we needed to go. And then but we did talk about Taylor Swift lived in Wyomissing, Pennsylvania.
mhm,
And if we can make it there, that would be great. That would be
yeah.
awesome. But
I had
we
it
didn't.
in I had it in my head that Wyomissing was a lot further west than we were gonna be. And we toyed with the idea of going on the way, but we
But we
had to make
had
it
a
there.
deadline. We
We
had
had
a
a
specific
deadline to
thing we
make it
needed
there.
to get there for.
And so we kind of, at least I kind of threw it out as like, okay, we won't get around to it this trip. Um, but it was always in the back of our heads. It was like, maybe we'll do it on the way back, whatever. Um, and then there was one day where I realized we don't really have anything specific that we need to do today that's on the list. Like we kind of had a free day. It was kind of random. And so
But in addition to the priorities that we had, we also had a few sub priorities of things that we really wanted to do. One of them was going to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, to Amish country, and to kind of experience that. So we used that little bit of time to do that, and not even thinking, how can we weave in Wyomissing into this?
no, we just wanted to go to Lancaster. And then once we were in Lancaster, I was like, oh, on our way back to um it was Doylestown we were staying in. On our way back to Doylestown, why don't we head up north a little bit and go to Reading, to go to the pagoda, because I had some friends that had gone there and it was so cool. Um, and so, we were like, okay, let's head to the pagoda. Why not? We're already in this mood of spontaneity, so let's go.
Right. So we were like headed out on the spontaneous side trip from all of our other stuff that we were checking off of our bucket list. And I saw on one of the overpasses on the freeway, Wyomissing Road, or some kind of road name with Wyomissing on it. And I said, hold on, Emery, isn't it Wyomissing? Like, are we there? Or is this in a totally different part of Pennsylvania? I'm like, look it up on your phone. So get the map out, like Google where
So
Taylor Swift's house was, find
I
the
looked,
address, and see where we are.
we had looked at the address before. We knew she was in Wyomissing. We were like, is this the same Wyomissing? And so I whip out my phone. I'm looking up the address to her old house again. And I'm like, oh, it's like
you
real
like copied it and you
close
put it in the maps
in the
app.
maps. And I
And
was like, oh, it's real close. And then I pressed start on the directions and it said, get off at this next exit. And we were like, you're kidding.
at the
And then
exit.
it's like 5 minutes off the exit.
Yeah.
It
So
was right there.
Yeah. We were like, what? We were here. We didn't even plan it. We didn't even think about it. So we get off the freeway and then there's only a couple of turns and we get up in this beautiful little suburb neighborhood. And as we're looking, we're like, that house is for sale. And I'm like, look it up, Google it and see if this is the real one. And we did. We Googled it and it was Taylor Swift's old house is for sale. We're like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
We made it.
So it wasn't, this monumental thing like, oh my gosh, this is her house. It was just, we had an opportunity. This is her house. We took a picture. It was on sale. We didn't buy it, but it was just surreal to be in that moment. And it just seemed like the biggest thing ever that all of a sudden we're there and we had this opportunity to go, even though we didn't plan it. And yeah,
I loved it. I loved how everything just fell into place. And like we had really wanted to do it, but we kind of, I think in my mind anyway, I'd let go of the thought because I wanted to do all of those high priority things, which were wonderful and beautiful. And we wanted to do that. We just had so many things we wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I kind of put, go visit Taylor Swift's old house on the back burner. And then to have it be like right in the path of where we were going. It was so much fun. And I think that was so cool. We got out and took a couple pictures in front of it. And I just thought that was so cool.
It was the simplest little side trip, but if it didn't happen, whatever, but it did. And it was special. And and it was really cool. And now it's a memory that, again, a new memory we'll have forever. And I just, those little moments are really what make our relationship with Taylor Swift, our relationship with each other through her, and just all of this, it all just comes together in this big, beautiful, woven, tapestry, just like her music. And I just, we've thrown the word magic around a lot this episode, and I feel like that's just what she brings to our lives. I feel like every time I'm talking about Taylor Swift, listening to Taylor Swift, I feel magic in my life. Whether it's just I'm living deeper or having more fun or, creating deeper relationships with other people, she amplifies life and she amplifies that human experience. And she really has brought us together. I feel like, we've always had a good bond, but knowing that I can always go to you and listen to Taylor Swift is amazing. So all that to say, we've talked about a lot today, and there's a lot more to come. But we wanted to close out with the end of the little scrapbook. This is my mom's note to me from 2011 after Speak Now came out, and it's in the back of the book. It's sappy. I might tear up, but it's worth closing out with. She said, Emery, thank you for making this trip one of my favorite memories. I love you so much and hope you'll always remember to long live, speak now, and never grow up. Love, Mom. And that's why we're here, because Taylor Swift has inspired us and brought us together. And we love each other and we love her. And it's going to be amazing to share this together and to share this with you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Our Swift Epiphanies.
Follow us on social media at Our Swift Epiphanies for behind the scenes and bonus content, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive video content.
Get in on the conversation by commenting or messaging us with your Swift Epiphanies.